Marcus Chen wiped sweat from his brow as he hefted another cargo container onto the transport platform. The artificial gravity in the Zephyrian mining station made everything feel heavier than it should, but after 3 years of this work, his muscles had adapted. Around him, hundreds of other humans moved with the same mechanical precision, loading precious metals and rare minerals that would fuel the Galactic Dominion's war machine. The Zephyrians watched from their elevated platforms, their crystalline forms glittering under the harsh industrial lights. To them, humans were nothing more than pack animals, strong backs and nimble fingers perfectly suited for the dangerous work that their own delicate physiology couldn't handle. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus that humans had once ruled their own planet before the Dominion arrived with promises of partnership and progress. "Keep moving, labor unit," barked Overseer Crick 7, his translator device converting his harmonic speech into harsh English. "The shipment departs in 2 cycles." Marcus bit back his response. Speaking out of turn earned a shock from the neural collar every human wore. He'd learned that lesson painfully in his first week. Instead, he focused on the weight in his hands and the steady rhythm of work that had become his entire existence. But Marcus wasn't just any laborer. Before the Dominion's arrival, he had been Colonel Marcus Chen of Earth's Planetary Defense Forces. The neural collars suppressed most memories of their past lives, but fragments remained: muscle memory, tactical thinking, and most importantly, the burning desire for freedom that no technology could fully erase. As he worked, Marcus caught the eye of Sarah Rivera across the loading bay. She had been a demolitions expert, though the aliens believed her to be just another strong human female. Her slight nod told him everything he needed to know. The plan was moving forward. For months, small groups of humans had been carefully reconnecting with their suppressed memories. It started with simple meditation techniques disguised as prayer sessions. The Zephyrians, having no concept of spirituality, dismissed these gatherings as primitive ritual behavior. They had no idea that during those quiet moments, trained soldiers and engineers were slowly breaking through the mental barriers imposed by their collars. Dr. James Walsh had been the breakthrough. As a former neuroscientist, he understood how the suppression technology worked. Hidden in his role as a medical attendant for injured workers, he had discovered that certain frequencies could temporarily disrupt the collar's influence. The discovery had spread carefully through trusted networks, awakening more and more humans to their true capabilities. The loading shift ended, and Marcus joined the stream of workers heading to the residential blocks. The gray corridors were designed for efficiency, not comfort. Humans were housed in small, sterile chambers that barely qualified as rooms. But efficiency worked both ways. It also made it easier for secret messages to travel through the ventilation systems. That evening, Marcus received his signal, a small piece of metal in his food ration, shaped like an arrow. The time had come. Under the cover of darkness, he made his way through maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the station. These passages were too small for the tall, angular Zephyrians, making them perfect for clandestine movement. One by one, other figures emerged from different access points until nearly 50 humans had gathered in an unused storage bay deep within the station's core. Sarah was already there, along with Dr. Walsh and Captain Elena Vasquez, formerly of Earth's Special Operations Command. The sight of these trained professionals, even in their worn laborers' clothing, was enough to kindle hope in Marcus's chest. "Report," Elena whispered, falling naturally into her command role. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, holding a small device he'd cobbled together from salvaged electronics. "I've managed to create a temporary disruptor. It can't completely disable the collars, but it can give us brief windows of full cognitive function. Enough to remember our training and coordinate properly." Sarah nodded toward a covered pile in the corner. "I've been gathering materials for weeks, cleaning solvents, industrial chemicals, power cells. Separately, they're harmless, Together, she smiled grimly. Let's just say the Zephyrians are about to learn why humans were so good at war. Marcus felt a familiar thrill as his tactical mind, freed from the collar's influence, began to assess their situation. The station housed approximately 10,000 humans across various work details. The Zephyrian garrison numbered only 200, supported by automated defense systems. They had never needed more. What threat could unarmed laborers possibly pose? Security protocols? Marcus asked. Minimal, Elena reported. They rely entirely on the neural collars for control. Physical security is designed to keep people in, not to stop an organized uprising from within. Their arrogance is our advantage. Dr. Walsh activated his disruptor, and for a brief moment, Marcus felt his mind clear completely. Memories flooded back, years of military training, strategic planning, the weight of a plasma rifle in his hands. When the device powered down and the suppression reasserted itself, enough remained for him to function. We have advantages they don't know about, Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of his former rank. They see us as primitive, but we're the species that fought our way to the top of Earth's food chain. We're the ones who built weapons capable of cracking continents. They think manual labor is all we're good for, but we're also the species that turned warfare into a science. The group spent hours planning, their suppressed memories providing crucial tactical knowledge. The Zephyrians had made fatal assumptions about human capabilities. They saw Earth surrender after the orbital bombardment and assumed humans were a broken, defeated species. They never understood that surrender can be a tactical choice, not a sign of weakness. Over the following weeks, the network expanded carefully. Trusted humans in critical positions were awakened to their true nature. Engineers in the power systems, security technicians, even food service workers, all began to remember skills that went far beyond manual labor. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. The Zephyrians had unknowingly placed humans in every critical system on the station. Who better to maintain the complex machinery than beings with nimble fingers and problem-solving minds? They had handed their enemies the keys to their own fortress. Marcus's team focused on the communications array. As a former electronics technician, a skill hidden beneath his laborer identity, Tom Bradley had gradually gained access to the station's communication systems. The Zephyrians trusted him to perform routine maintenance, never suspecting that he was mapping their entire network. Meanwhile, Sarah's demolitions expertise proved invaluable. She had identified key structural points throughout the station, places where relatively small explosions could disable crucial systems without depressurizing the entire facility. The goal wasn't suicide, it was liberation. Dr. Walsh continued refining his disruptor technology, creating small, portable versions that could be passed discreetly among the human workforce. Each device could only be used once before burning out, but that would be enough for the coordinated strikes they were planning. The breakthrough came during a routine medical inspection. Dr. Walsh was examining injured workers when he noticed something interesting about the Zephyrian biology. Their crystalline structures, so beautiful and imposing, were actually quite fragile under certain types of stress. More importantly, they were vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies that human technology could easily generate. They're living glass sculptures, he explained to the core group. Impressive to look at, but brittle. Their own technology is designed around this limitation. Everything they build avoids frequencies that might shatter their bodies. But human technology has no such restrictions. The implications were staggering. Not only were the humans more capable than their captors realized, but the Zephyrians themselves were far more vulnerable than they appeared. It was like discovering that gods were made of paper. Plans shifted and adapted. What had begun as a simple escape attempt evolved into something far more ambitious. Why settle for running away when they could take control of the entire station? and once they had one station, they could spread the awakening to other human populations throughout the Dominion. The signal came 3 months after that first secret meeting. A power fluctuation that lasted exactly 7 seconds, too brief for the Zephyrians to notice, but enough to tell every awakened human that the time had come. Marcus was in the main loading bay when the lights flickered. Around him, hundreds of humans continued their work as if nothing had happened, but he could see the subtle changes. Postures straightened slightly. Eyes became more alert. Hands moved with new purpose. Overseer Crick 7 was examining shipping manifests when the first explosion rocked the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as the main power grid suffered multiple simultaneous failures. In the confusion that followed, no one noticed the humans moving with sudden coordination and purpose. Sarah's charges had been placed with surgical precision. The communications array went dark, cutting the station off from the Dominion fleet. The automated defense systems found themselves without power. Most crucially, the Central Command Center lost its ability to monitor or control the human residential areas. Dr. Walsh's disruptors activated across the station, creating a cascade effect as thousands of neural collars experienced temporary failures. For the first time in years, the entire human population of the mining station remembered who they truly were. Marcus found himself standing in the loading bay, but now he saw it through the eyes of a trained military officer. The Zephyrians were shouting orders in their musical language, their crystalline forms reflecting the emergency lights like scattered jewels. They were beautiful, certainly, but beauty had never stopped a determined human army. "Attention all Dominion forces!" Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the bay with practiced authority. "You are now prisoners of the liberated human resistance. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to the laws of war." Overseer Crick 7 turned toward him, confusion evident in the shifting patterns of light within his crystalline body. "Labor unit, return to your assigned duties immediately. Your neural collar appears to be malfunctioning." Marcus smiled, and for the first time in 3 years, it was the smile of a predator. "My name is Colonel Marcus Chen, and I'm done being your laborer. We all are." The Zephyrian reached for his control device, the tool that should have sent crippling pain through Marcus's collar. But Sarah had done her job well. The control systems were nothing but melted slag deep within the station's bowels. Around the loading bay, humans were standing straighter, moving with purpose instead of mechanical compliance. Years of suppressed military training were reasserting themselves as former soldiers remembered their skills. The laborers were awakening to their true nature, and the Zephyrians were about to learn why humanity had once been feared across the galaxy. The war for liberation had begun, and the hunters had become the hunted. The Zephyrian security forces responded exactly as Marcus had predicted, with overwhelming arrogance and complete tactical blindness. They had never faced organized resistance from humans before, and their response protocols were designed for individual troublemakers, not coordinated military action. Commander Thex Prime led the first security team into the loading bay, his crystalline armor gleaming with embedded weapons systems. Behind him came 20 Zephyrian guards, their forms crackling with energy shields and sonic disruptors. They expected to find panicked laborers cowering in fear, easy targets for their advanced technology. Instead, they walked into a carefully orchestrated ambush. The humans had vanished from the open floor, but the bay wasn't empty. Captain Elena Vasquez had put her years of special operations training to work, and every human in that space had become part of a lethal trap. They hung from the crane systems overhead, crouched behind cargo containers, and waited in maintenance alcoves with improvised weapons that would have made their old drill sergeants proud. "Surrender now, and we'll consider lenient treatment," Commander Thex Prime announced, his harmonic voice amplified by his suit's speakers. "Your rebellion is futile. You cannot hope to match Dominion technology with primitive human aggression. The response came from everywhere at once. Humans dropped from above while others emerged from cover, but this wasn't the wild charge Thex Prime expected. These were coordinated fire teams moving with precision that spoke of years of combat experience. The improvised weapons in their hands weren't just random tools, they were carefully crafted instruments of war. Sarah's knowledge of chemistry had transformed cleaning supplies into explosive compounds. Industrial cutting tools became shaped charges. Even simple metal pipes had been converted into projectile weapons using compressed air from the station's maintenance systems. The humans had literally beaten swords from plowshares, turning their tools of labor into instruments of liberation. The first volley shattered 3 Zephyrian energy shields before the aliens could react. Their crystalline bodies, so impressive and intimidating, proved as fragile as Dr. Walsh had predicted. High-frequency sonic pulses from modified cleaning equipment sent fracture lines racing through their forms. Electromagnetic bursts from jury-rigged power cells disrupted their sophisticated weapons systems. Commander Thex Prime watched in disbelief as his elite guards fell to what appeared to be primitive human tools. But Marcus could see the truth in the aliens' shifting light patterns. This wasn't just shock at the humans' capabilities. It was the dawning realization that the Dominion had made a catastrophic error in judgment. "You don't understand," Thex Prime transmitted, his harmonics distorted by damage to his vocal systems. "We are the Galactic Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds. Our technology is beyond your comprehension." Elena stepped out of cover, her improvised weapon trained on the commander's core. Her voice carried the cold professionalism of someone who had ended conflicts in ways diplomats never discussed. "Your technology is impressive, but you made one mistake. You assumed we were just laborers because that's how you chose to see us. We let you believe that because it was tactically advantageous." The truth was even more devastating than the aliens could comprehend. Humanity hadn't just surrendered to the Dominion's invasion, they had studied it. Every human on every conquered world had been watching, learning, cataloging weaknesses in their captors' methods. The Dominion had thought they were breaking the human spirit, but they had actually been providing a masterclass in their own vulnerabilities. As the security teams fell back in confusion, Marcus coordinated the expansion of human control throughout the station. The awakened humans moved with the efficiency that spoke to their true nature. These weren't just laborers remembering scattered skills. These were professional soldiers, engineers, and scientists who had been deliberately hiding their capabilities for years. In the Power Core section, Chief Engineer Rodriguez was doing far more than his title suggested. Before the invasion, he had designed defensive systems for Earth's orbital platforms. Now he turned that expertise toward taking control of the station's energy grid. The Zephyrians had built their technology around principles of beauty and harmony, making their systems as elegant as they were functional. Unfortunately, elegance often meant complexity, and Rodriguez understood complex systems better than their creators. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Dr. Walsh was putting his neuroscience background to work in ways the aliens had never anticipated. The same technology they used to suppress human memories could be reversed, accelerating the awakening process. More importantly, he had discovered how to disrupt the Zephyrians' own neural networks. Their crystalline brains, so perfectly organized, were vulnerable to the same electromagnetic interference that affected their technology. The communications blackout worked both ways. The Dominion fleet couldn't contact the station, but they also couldn't call for help. The humans had effectively severed the station from any outside support, turning it into an isolated battlefield where numbers and technology mattered less than training and determination. News of the uprising spread through the human population faster than the Zephyrians could respond. Maintenance workers used the station's own communication systems to coordinate with other groups. Food service personnel passed coded messages through meal distributions. Even the medical staff helped by identifying humans who still showed signs of neural suppression and quietly administering Walsh's awakening treatments. The Zephyrians tried to adapt their tactics, but they were fighting an enemy they had never bothered to understand. Their security protocols assumed that superior technology and numerical advantage would always prevail. They had never developed strategies for fighting an enemy that was numerically superior, intimately familiar with the battlefield, and professionally trained in asymmetric warfare. The turning point came when Captain Lisa Park, formerly of Earth's Void Navy, gained access to the station's docking bay. Her official role had been cargo inspector, but her true expertise lay in starship systems. The Zephyrian transport vessels docked at the station weren't just potential escape routes. They were also weapons platforms with enough firepower to reduce entire settlements to ash. Park moved through the docking bay with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent years in zero-gravity combat. The Zephyrian guards posted here had relaxed their vigilance, assuming that the uprising was contained in the industrial sections. They never saw her coming until their own transport weapons were turned against the station's remaining security forces. The psychological impact was devastating. The Zephyrians had built their entire strategy around technological superiority, but now humans were using that same technology against them. Every weapon, every system, every carefully designed advantage was being turned into a liability by opponents who understood warfare in ways the Dominion had never imagined. Marcus established his command post in the former overseer's office, surrounded by tactical displays that now showed human positions instead of work assignments. The transformation was remarkable. What had been a labor management center was now the headquarters of a full-scale military operation. The same efficiency that had made humans valuable as workers now made them deadly as soldiers. Reports flowed in from across the station. The reactor core was secure. The life support systems were under human control. The Zephyrian command center had fallen after a textbook assault that would have impressed instructors at any military academy. Most importantly, they had captured the station's complete personnel database, including the locations of every other human labor camp in this sector. But the humans weren't content with just liberating one station. Dr. Walsh had been busy analyzing the Zephyrian neural control technology, and his discoveries were staggering. The same systems used to suppress human memories could be modified to broadcast awakening signals across interstellar distances. Every human in Dominion custody could potentially be freed simultaneously. "It's elegant in its simplicity," Walsh explained to the command group. "Their communication networks are designed to carry neural suppression signals to maintain control over scattered populations. If we reverse the polarity and boost the frequency, we can send awakening pulses through their entire infrastructure. Every human in the sector would remember who they truly are." The implications were staggering. The Dominion controlled hundreds of worlds, with human populations in the millions. If all of them awakened simultaneously, the entire galactic balance of power would shift overnight. The laborers would become an army, and the Dominion would find itself facing an enemy that vastly outnumbered them. Elena studied the tactical projections, her strategic mind calculating possibilities. "It's not just about numbers, it's about knowledge. Every human on every world has been studying Dominion technology and tactics for years. They've been inside enemy installations, maintaining their equipment, learning their weaknesses. When they awaken, they'll know exactly how to bring the whole system down." The plan that emerged was audacious even by human standards. They would use the captured station as a broadcasting platform, sending awakening signals to every human population in the sector. But they wouldn't stop there. The signals would also carry tactical information, weak points in Dominion technology, coordination protocols for simultaneous uprisings, and most importantly, the knowledge that they weren't alone in their rebellion. As the hours passed, the Zephyrian resistance on the station crumbled. Their beautiful, harmonious society had never prepared them for warfare against an enemy that fought with such calculated precision. Every time they tried to adapt their tactics, the humans anticipated their moves and countered with strategies that seemed to come from nowhere. The truth was that human military doctrine had been developed through millennia of warfare against their own species. They understood deception, adaptation, and the psychology of combat in ways that the peaceful Dominion could never match. The Zephyrians were fighting an enemy that had perfected warfare while they had perfected harmony. Commander Thex Prime, wounded and trapped in the administrative section, sent a desperate transmission to what he thought was the Dominion fleet. Instead, his signal was intercepted by Tom Bradley, who had spent the last 3 hours completely compromising the station's communication array. "This is Commander Thex Prime to Dominion Command." The transmission began. "The humans on mining station Epsilon 7 have somehow overcome their neural conditioning. They are displaying organized military capabilities that suggest systematic deception over an extended period. Request immediate reinforcement and extraction." Marcus listened to the intercepted message and smiled. The commander still didn't understand what he was really facing. This wasn't just a local uprising by desperate slaves. It was the opening move in a war the Dominion had unknowingly been provoking for years. "Send a response," Marcus told Bradley. "Tell them that reinforcements are unnecessary. The situation is under control." But as the transmission went out on Dominion frequencies, it carried more than just false information. Hidden within the communication protocols was Dr. Walsh's awakening signal, ready to spread through the Dominion's own network to every human population in the sector. The rebellion was about to go galactic, and the laborers were about to show the universe what humanity was truly capable of when unleashed from their chains. The Zephyrians had wanted efficient workers, but they had accidentally created the most dangerous army in galactic history. Millions of humans with intimate knowledge of enemy systems, decades of suppressed military training, and the burning desire to reclaim their freedom. The storm was rising, and it would soon engulf everything the Dominion had built. The awakening signal rippled through space at the speed of light, carried by the Dominion's own communication network to every corner of their empire. On 1,000 worlds, in countless installations and labor camps, humans suddenly remembered who they were. On the agricultural world of Kepler 442b, former Admiral Sarah Mitchell was harvesting grain when the signal reached her. The neural collar around her neck flickered once, then died completely. For the first time in 4 years, her mind was completely clear. Around her, thousands of other humans were straightening up in the fields, their eyes losing the dull compliance that had defined their existence. The Zephyrian overseers, floating on their elegant repulsor platforms, suddenly found themselves surrounded by an awakening army. On the industrial moon of Titan 7, Chief Engineer David Kim felt his memories flood back as he stood before a massive power plant that supplied energy to half the sector. He had built similar facilities during his years with the Colonial Engineering Corps, and he knew exactly how to turn this one into the largest electromagnetic pulse generator in galactic history. The Zephyrians had placed humans in charge of maintaining their most critical infrastructure, a decision they were about to regret. But it was on the fortress world of Dominion Prime where the awakening had the most immediate impact. This was the sector's military headquarters, home to the Dominion's largest fleet and most advanced installations. It was also where over 2 million humans had been working as maintenance staff, technicians, and support personnel for the past 5 years. Captain Maria Vasquez, Elena's sister, had been serving as a food preparation specialist in the main command center. Her real expertise was in battlefield communications and electronic warfare. As her memories returned, she looked around the Dominion's nerve center with the eyes of a trained saboteur. The Zephyrians had unknowingly given her access to every critical system in their military hierarchy. The beauty of the human strategy lay in its simplicity. The Dominion had distributed human workers throughout their infrastructure because humans were versatile, intelligent, and seemed completely harmless under neural control. They had essentially planted a sleeper army inside their own most sensitive installations, then given them years to study every weakness and vulnerability. Marcus watched the reports flood in from across the sector as communication networks that should have been carrying routine military traffic instead brought news of systematic uprising. The scale was breathtaking, not just individual revolts, but coordinated military actions executed with precision that spoke to humanity's true nature. On mining station Epsilon 7, the last Zephyrian resistance had surrendered an hour ago. Commander Thex Prime sat in the detention area, his crystalline form dimmed with defeat and confusion. He still couldn't comprehend how his technologically superior forces had been defeated by what he thought were primitive laborers. "You want to understand what happened here," Marcus said, entering the detention area. "Your species made one fundamental error in judgment. You saw humans performing manual labor and assumed that was all we were capable of. But we didn't become the dominant species on our world by being simple laborers. We became dominant by being the most effective predators in our planet's history." Thex Prime's light patterns shifted to what Marcus had learned indicated distress. "Your species surrendered to our invasion. You offered no resistance to our rule. We saw your defeat and assumed your nature." Marcus nodded. "That's exactly what we wanted you to see. Surrender was a tactical choice, not an admission of defeat. We gave you what you expected, compliant workers who seemed grateful for your guidance. While you were congratulating yourselves on your benevolence, we were studying everything about your civilization, every weakness, every blind spot, every assumption you made about us." The scope of the deception was only now becoming clear to the Dominion leadership. Dr. Walsh's modified neural suppressors hadn't just hidden human memories, they had hidden human nature itself. For years, the most dangerous military minds in the galaxy had been quietly cataloging Dominion vulnerabilities while pretending to be simple manual laborers. News continued to stream in from across the sector. The patterns were eerily consistent, human uprisings succeeding with minimal casualties on the human side, while Zephyrian forces found themselves completely outmatched by enemies they had never bothered to understand. On Kepler 442b, Admiral Mitchell had taken control of the planetary defense grid within 3 hours of awakening. The agricultural world's grain silos were revealed to be camouflaged weapon emplacements that the humans had been secretly modifying for years. When the Dominion fleet arrived to suppress the uprising, they found themselves facing defensive systems that had been upgraded with human military technology. The space battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Dominion ships, beautiful and harmonious in their crystalline construction, were optimized for peaceful expansion and controlling primitive worlds. They had never faced opponents who understood three-dimensional tactical thinking and asymmetric warfare. Admiral Mitchell's tactics were textbook examples of what made human military doctrine so effective. She used the planet's gravity well and debris fields to mask her movements, employed feints and misdirection to confuse enemy targeting systems, and coordinated simultaneous attacks from multiple vectors that overwhelmed the Zephyrians' elegant but rigid command structure. The Dominion fleet was reduced to drifting debris within 6 hours. On Titan VII, Chief Engineer Kim had turned the industrial moon into a massive weapon. The power plant's output was redirected through hastily constructed focusing arrays, creating electromagnetic pulses that could disable entire fleets at interstellar distances. When the Dominion dispatched their rapid response force to retake the facility, they found their ships dead in space long before they reached the moon's orbit. But it was the fall of Dominion Prime that truly shattered the Empire's confidence. Captain Maria Vasquez had done more than just awaken. She had spent years quietly introducing subtle modifications to the Fortress World systems. When the moment came, She didn't need to fight the Zephyrian command structure. She simply turned it off. The orbital defense platforms went dark. The planetary shield generators shut down. The massive fleet anchored above the world found their weapons systems locked out and their navigation computers displaying error messages in perfect English. In less than an hour, the military heart of the Dominion was completely paralyzed. The psychological impact was even more devastating than the tactical victory. The Zephyrians had built their entire society around the assumption of technological and cultural superiority. They were the enlightened beings who brought order to primitive worlds, the harmonious civilization that lifted lesser species from their violent nature. Discovering that they had been systematically outplayed by what they considered simple laborers shattered their fundamental worldview. The humans hadn't just defeated them, they had revealed that the Dominion's entire understanding of intelligence and capability was fatally flawed. Marcus received confirmation of Dominion Prime's fall while coordinating the liberation of the entire Epsilon sector. The communication came from Maria herself, her voice carrying the same professional calm that ran in the Vasquez family. "Colonel Chen, this is Captain Vasquez reporting from Dominion Prime Command. All military assets in this system are now under human control. We've also gained access to their strategic planning database. You're going to want to see this." The intelligence windfall was staggering. The Dominion's planning files revealed the locations of every human population in their territory, detailed assessments of their military capabilities, and most importantly, their contingency plans for dealing with widespread rebellion. The aliens had never seriously considered the possibility that humans might be capable of coordinated resistance, so their contingency plans were laughably inadequate. More disturbing was the discovery of the Dominion's long-term strategy for humanity. They hadn't just been using humans as laborers, they had been conducting a slow-motion genocide, gradually reducing human populations while increasing their dependence on Zephyrian technology. Within a generation, humanity would have been reduced to a tiny population of completely dependent servants. The revelation hardened human resolve across the sector. This wasn't just about freedom, it was about survival. The Dominion had been slowly murdering their entire species while pretending to be benevolent caretakers. The final phase of the liberation came when Admiral Mitchell coordinated a sector-wide offensive using the captured Dominion assets. Human-controlled fleets launched simultaneous strikes on the remaining Zephyrian strongholds, each attack planned with the intimate knowledge of enemy weaknesses that only years of infiltration could provide. The battles were swift and decisive. Zephyrian technology, so impressive when used against primitive opponents, proved inadequate when facing enemies who understood both its capabilities and its limitations. Human tactical flexibility overwhelmed alien tactical rigidity at every engagement. The Dominion's beautiful, harmonious fleets were reduced to clouds of sparkling debris drifting through space, the ashes of an empire that had failed to understand the nature of its slaves. 3 weeks after the first awakening signal, the last Zephyrian garrison surrendered. The Epsilon sector was completely under human control, along with vast territories beyond, as the liberation spread to neighboring regions. The Galactic Dominion, which had seemed unshakable just a month before, was collapsing as their primitive slaves revealed their true nature across 100 worlds. Marcus stood in what had been Commander Thex Prime's office, now serving as the headquarters for the Free Human Fleet. Through the viewport, he could see the construction of new ships, vessels designed by human engineers who no longer had to hide their capabilities. These wouldn't be the elegant, harmonious designs preferred by the Zephyrians. These would be human warships, built by a species that understood warfare in ways their former captors never could. Elena entered with the final casualty reports. The numbers were remarkable. In 3 weeks of sector-wide warfare, human losses had been minimal. The Zephyrians, despite their technological advantages, had suffered devastating defeats at every engagement. It wasn't just superior tactics. It was the fundamental difference between a society that had perfected harmony and one that had perfected war. Dr. Walsh estimates we can have awakening signals reaching the core worlds within 6 months, Elena reported. If the pattern holds, the entire Dominion could be liberated before the year is out. Marcus nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. And after that, we'll have freed billions of humans, but we'll also have destroyed the only galactic government most of them have ever known. What kind of civilization do we build from the ashes? It was Elena who provided the answer, her voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had seen the worst of war and the best of human nature. We build one worthy of what we've fought for. The Zephyrians saw us as laborers and assumed that was all we could be, but we're not just warriors either. We're builders, explorers, dreamers. We turned their own tools against them, but we can also turn those same tools toward something better. Through the viewport, construction continued on the new ships. But Marcus could also see other projects, space habitats designed for beauty as well as function, research stations where human and friendly alien scientists worked together, and communication arrays that would carry messages of hope rather than oppression across the galaxy. The laborers had indeed shattered their oppressors' armies into ash, but from those ashes would rise something the galaxy had never seen. A truly free human civilization, one that combined the best of human ingenuity with the knowledge gained from their years among the stars. The Dominion had intended to use humanity as tools for their expansion. Instead, they had forged their own destroyers, creating an enemy that understood both the price of freedom and the power to protect it. The humans who had once bent their backs under alien oversight now stood straight as the inheritors of a galaxy that had underestimated them. The age of hidden strength was over. The age of human stars had begun.